I rewatched the entire game, every offensive snap, focused on the offensive line, so you don't have to. I'm going to tell you what I liked about it and some of the things that stood out that I didn't like.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Wisconsin Badgers fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Herrings. Thank you for making this one your first listens. Thank you for being here. If you're here with me late at night, I appreciate you for being crazy like I am. But if you're catching this tomorrow, if you're catching it on audio, whatever it is, I appreciate you so much for being part of this community. Today, we are talking about the rewatch of the game, focused on the offensive line, what I liked, what I didn't like, emptying the clip, other things that stood out on the rewatch. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Okay. If you're here with me late, man, drop a comment. Let me know that there's other people up at 12:30 Central AM. Let's talk offensive line. So went back, watched the All-22, watched every offensive snap, really focused on the offensive line. And there's good and bad. I used to coach basketball. I think I've told people that. And one of the things you always kind of realize the film is a really interesting thing to watch a day or two later, because no matter how well you performed, you're never quite as good as you thought. You're never quite as bad as you thought. There's always like one or two things. If you clean those up, it could have looked a lot different. You could put up 44 points on somebody and you go back and watch film and you're like, oh, gosh, we still didn't look very good in those spots. You could get pummeled, but then you go back and you look, man, we were just a block away from springing that thing there. So the rewatch is always super interesting. Let me start with what I liked. I thought Emerson Mandel looked really good at right tackle. And I'm going to be honest. I was a guy who I wasn't a big fan of kicking him out, and it's not because I'm not an Emerson Mandel fan. I like him. I think he's got a high upside. I like him at guard more, but he anchored really well on the edge. He used his length. He's got some pretty long arms. I mean, for an interior guy that I like there, he was able to use his length on the outside. He anchored. He stayed on balance. A couple plays where he's getting out in space on receiver screens. Like, he's moving pretty well. It's Middle Tennessee State. I don't think they have an elite speed rusher out there that tests you on the edge. That's true for Mandel and it's true for Malman. But I thought he accounted himself really well, especially given his inexperience, given the fact that he was playing guard last week. He got switched to tackle this week. He's still a redshirt freshman. You just wonder what the ceiling is for a player like this, that in his second year in college, he's started at guard. He started at tackle. I think he's looked pretty good at both. I like the physical tools. I could see him. Again, it's one game and it's not a great opponent, but I thought he looked good at right tackle. I was impressed with Emerson Mandel. So hats off to him. I thought this was a good game for Emerson Mandel. Riley Malman. I didn't expect Riley Malman to not look good, but I thought he looked pretty good too. So your tackles look good to me. Going back, rewatching the game, I thought both of your tackles looked pretty good, and maybe maybe Emerson Mandel is a future right tackle. Maybe that is his spot if they want to keep him out there. And you can kind of see when you watch him out there move in space with his power and his size, you can kind of see what the staff was doing by experimenting with him out there at tackle. I still think he's probably got a higher ceiling at guard, but I thought he played really well. So you got to give him a big tip of the cap, because he's such a young player. For him to move out there and to do it in a game week and play this well, that's a testament to him. It's a testament to his ability to know the assignments at multiple spots across the offensive line. Great job. Great job, Emerson Mandel. I thought he looked really good. Let's keep moving here. Those are kind of what I liked. Okay. I thought the pass protection was pretty good across the board. I thought the tackles played pretty well. Let's talk a little bit about what I didn't love. And full caveat to all of this, I'm not an offensive line coach. I'll never pretend to be one. I thought Kerry Kadenko played, I think it's Kadanko actually, played pretty poorly. Even outside of the snaps, struggled getting to that second line, right? So he would release, but he wouldn't be able to engage on that second line, that linebacker, or he would kind of slip off him. He struggled maintaining blocks. There were a couple plays where it looked like there was a little, maybe lack of situational awareness across the line. And I don't think that's necessarily a Kadanko issue. I just think they had a lot of new pieces and new spots. And you could tell there's a couple times where maybe one offensive lineman expected to pass off a defender and the other guy didn't pick him up or vice versa. So I think some of that can be expected with the moving pieces and some of the young pieces on the line. But Karakidanko missed on some blocks, wasn't great, even outside of the snapping issues, which also weren't great. I think having Jake Renfro back, and it's not a shot to carry, but Renfro is a center. That's having him back in the interior of that offense line, I think would be a big deal. And I think it's going to make a big difference for this team. Hopefully he can come back next week. I think this was a relatively minor thing. Nothing that I've heard or nothing that I've seen suggests this is a long-term issue, but we also got to be cognizant of the fact that he's probably something that's going to linger. It's something that lingered in practice. As a player that 2 years ago missed most of the season, he's already dinged up again. So getting him back for Alabama, it's not like he's going to be 100%. This might just be something that they have to work through for the entire year. And in the offseason, they're going to have to address depth in the middle in a big way. They're going to have to bring in a center in the portal. Even if they like what Ryan Corey could be, you have to go into next year with two centers that you feel comfortable snapping the ball, because they don't have that right now. So I thought Karakidanko struggled, unfortunately. I thought there were some moments from Joe Brunner where he wasn't as good as I would expect him to be. And I have a pretty high standard for Brunner, because you have all these shifting spots around him. You have a new center, a new right tackle, a new left tackle. You're flipping a new guard in there with Cubberly. Brunner has to be the anchor. And there were a couple plays early on. There was one on a sweep to Dylan Jones where he kind of whiffed on his block and got turned around, where he either needs to hit his block or get to that second level. He kind of did neither. There was a play earlier in the game where it looks like maybe miscommunication. He got banged around a couple times and didn't land a block. On that 4th and 3 touchdown pass from Danny O'Neal, I almost said Danny O'Brien. From Danny O'Neal, Brunner, it looks like he kind of gave up a free rusher. Now, Danny O'Neal was able to get it off quickly and it was a touchdown, so it didn't matter. Brunner's got to be better. Brunner has to be the standard on that interior of the offensive line, because the other pieces are going to struggle a little bit more because they're inexperienced, because they're moving spots, because they're younger, because they're not as healthy. Brunner has to be rock solid. I didn't think this was a great Brunner game. Now, I will say I thought he settled in as the game went along. I thought he got better as the game went along. And there were some really physical plays later on in the game. There was one on the Dylan Jones 1-yard touchdown where he drove a guy through the end zone. That's phenomenal stuff. That's what you want to see. That's the swagger of Wisconsin Badgers offensive linemen. But he's got to be better early in the game. And a couple of those early plays, he wasn't fully locked in. Enrique's here with us late. He said the centers were hard to watch. It wasn't a great center game. The snaps were rough. You know, one of them over the head of Danny O'Neal that short-circuited a drive, essentially. It's almost a turnover in a way when you, on 1st and 10, lose 7 yards, and then the second play after that, they don't get much back. They got to be better there. They got to absolutely be better there. I will say the other point I would bring up, and it's kind of a running game ecosystem point, there were missed blocks by Grant Steck. There was a missed block by Grant Steck in the hole. He was kind of the one guy. If he gets his block, I think there was an interior run that could have sprung, but he wasn't able to stay on his block. His guy got off of him and made the tackle. There was a missed assignment from Emerson Mandel. I think it's a missed assignment. Again, when you go back and watch it, he was down near the goal line. And I give a lot of grace to a guy like Emerson Mandel who's in a new spot, but they were down near the goal line. Darian Dupree, there was one guy in the hole. And if Emerson Mandela just peeled off and hit that block, I think Darian Dupree could have sprung it. I think he could have maybe got a touchdown on that play down near the goal line, down near the red zone. He wasn't able to hit that. And then that guy in the hole made the tackle. Jackson Aker missed a couple blocks in the hole, where one of them down near the goal line again for Dylan Jones this time. Lance Mason missed a block. So my point in this is it's not just the offensive line, tight ends, fullback. Those guys had to hit their blocks as well. And then there were plays that were blown up because the tight ends didn't sustain their blocks, because Jackson Aker partially missed the block. So across the board, there were missed assignments, but I thought the bulk of this was on the interior of the offensive line. Colin Cubberly, first start, I thought he was fine, but there were some first start things that you saw pop up. Joe Brunner wasn't as good as I thought he should be, quite frankly. And I think he could be really good, so I hold him to a high standard. And then Karakidanko, I don't think it was a great game for him, unfortunately. Okay, let's take a break right now. Let's come back, friends of the show. I'm going to tell you what else I saw. The way they used Lance Mason was awesome. We're going to break that down. A couple of other players that stood out to me, some offensive scheme stuff. We're going to empty the clip. What else did I see offensively from rewatching this Badgers game? That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show over at Supply House. If you are trying to motivate your team, get them going, finish a project, get your crew moving forward, Supply House is your place to go. If you order today, you're going to have parts on your doorstep tomorrow. What a time we live in. This is incredible. We have cheese in the crust of pizzas, and we have Supply House delivering parts on your door the next day to keep you moving forward. Electrical items, plumbing, HVAC, their real-time inventory, honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. If you need parts fast for the project, Supply House has next-day delivery. Total game changer. Join the free Trade Master program today. Score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com, sign up for free. Use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Today's episode also brought to you by the incredible friends over at Gametime, a service that I've personally used. I love Gametime. This is where I always look first for tickets, and this is where I always look last because they have what I need. I never have to look anywhere else. So I go to Gametime. They have every type of ticket you're going to want, whether it's football, basketball, theater, concerts, whatever it is. And now that college football is back, I couldn't be more excited to get my tickets on Gametime. Just a couple taps, amazing deals. And whatever your college football game is, you can get those tickets on Gametime, sometimes for as low as $25. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Let's get back into it. A lot more to get into. Again, I'm going to empty the clip here. What else did I see from the game, from rewatching it? Let's get into my notes here. I'm curious who else is up with me late here. Ryan K says, waking up in Austria right now. Let's go. Perfect timing for me. Thanks, Ryan. These are great in-depth analysis. It's hard to gauge how their inability to move the ball or what their inability to move the ball against MTSU means. First of all, Ryan, thank you for watching us and being part of this community from Austria. That's incredible. That is phenomenal. It's awesome. Thank you for being in this community. Strong first name. I respect that. Let's talk about what else I saw in this that I thought was interesting. Riley Mullman and Emerson Mandel. Great job. Both of them, they like Coach Grimes loves to throw those receiver screens, loves to get his tackles out in space. Both were really impressive to me. Mandel and Riley Mullman both are able to get out in space and pick off some DBs. That's not the easiest thing for a 300-pound tackle to get out there and, knock around one of those little guys. Both were really impressive. I think they move well in space, better than they get credit for. Lance Mason. Let's talk about the versatility here. So there's some pieces that you can almost use like a Swiss Army knife, right? I'm a 49ers fan. Kyle Shanahan uses use check like this. He uses them in the flat. He uses them in the slot. He'll use them as a lead blocker. He'll hand the ball off, put him in motion. Lance Mason is very much that Swiss Army knife for Coach Jeff Grimes. So you go back and you rewatch this game. Obviously, he had the 7 catches, 102 yards after catch. But then you got to look at the variety of ways they use him. They use him in motion. They lateral to him. They use him on some option looks. They hit him on a slant. They hit him on a seam. They hit him on a wheel route. They hit him on a drag. They hit him on an out. They missed him on an out that would have been a touchdown. They're just using him everywhere. And we talked about this in Platteville. Trust what the coaches show you. Don't always trust what they say. Trust what they show you. What they're showing you is this is a guy they trust all over the field. Again, they're running a slot slant to him. They ran a wheel route to him that, by the way, Danny O'Neal, what a throw on that one. Just pinpoint. They ran a seam to him where they got him off motion. They used him as a lead blocker. Again, I think that's a spot he can get better at. They ran kind of an inside, little pitch to him off a fake jet sweep to Cade Yakimelli. They just use him in a ton of ways. And I think that speaks to his versatility. It speaks to his acumen, right? To be able to pick up all these different ways because he hasn't been here a long time, right? He came late into this program. And Jeff Grimes loves him. This coaching staff loves him. He's becoming a favorite target of, obviously, Danny O'Neal. I think he's really good. And they use him in a variety of ways. And when you go back and watch it, he really is almost that move piece that they can put anywhere and do a lot of things with. He makes his offense better. It is a big pickup this year. Lance Mason's another one I had. Jackson Aker. Let's talk Jackson Aker a little bit. Good and bad. He picked up a third and 1. Nice little powerful inside run there. On the Vinny Anthony end around, Jackson Aker's the guy that led the way, had a pancake in space. He's really the one that broke that open. But then on some of the interior blocks, he missed a couple guys. And I almost wonder, with the way Jeff Grimes wants to run this offense, with what he wants to do, I almost wonder if they miss a fullback, like a real fullback, a Derek Watt, an Alec Ingold, a Brady Ewing, somebody that is maybe a little more, and it's not Jackson Akers' fault, but he hasn't been a fullback all these years, and he was a halfback in high school. They could almost use a guy that could really hammer some people on those inside runs as a lead blocker. Maybe that's Tyler Jansey, right, coming up. I feel like that's a part of this offense that maybe they go and just find a fullback. And again, maybe that is Tyler Jansey going forward. And I'm not saying it can't be Jackson Aker, but there were a couple misses on the blocking front. And again, he in space, he had a great block on the Vinny Anthony end around. He picked up a 3rd and 1. He's a valuable piece of this offense, but I do think there's times where, man, you could just see how an Alec Ingold type player, an Austin Ramish type player, could really impact this offense in maybe a physical between the tackles type of a way. Let's talk about linebackers defensively. The other team's linebackers. Sorry, we're still talking about offense here. Going back and rewatching the motion that Jeff Grimes puts into this offense, the eye candy, the window dressing, motion, counter, coming back the other side, moving the pocket with Daniel Neal and then throwing back to the other way. There were times, man, Middle Tennessee's linebackers, even before the play, you can see them communicating, going back and forth, trying to figure out where their assignment was, where their eye discipline was going to be. He put their linebackers in a bind at times, and you could see as the game wore on, it's almost so. There's two types of exhaustion in sports. Maybe there's more. I don't know. I always talked about there's two types when we were coaching in basketball, right? There's physical, but then there's also mental exhaustion. And an example of that in basketball is if you just get pressed all game, mentally it starts to wear on you. Well, I think it starts to wear on the linebackers. Just this constant eye discipline, the constant misdirection, the constant running east and west and then getting hit inside. And I think as the game went on, that mental exhaustion took the toll on these defensive players. And you could see them. They were a step or two behind. I like what Jeff Grimes does with this scheme. I do think he schemes up some things where it's difficult on the defense, not physically, but mentally. And that builds up over the course of a game. So I was pretty impressed by that. I did think Yak had a bad read. Again, I'm not a coach. I don't ever pretend to be. It felt like Yak had an opportunity to on inside zone to kind of push the hole, and he cut it back into the defense. I thought that could have been a decent gain there. So when we talk about the running game not being great, I put a lot of this on the offensive line this week. And actually, going back, I'm a little higher on the running backs after having watched every offensive snap. I don't think there were a ton of holes they missed. I did think Yak had a read. When he goes back and watches film, he'll probably want to have back. Ryan K says, I wasn't expecting dominance. Team is young, so I get that we have to have some patience. Yep. It's young. I think it should look better than that, but this team is young. Kevin Willis says running backs are running with blinders. I think they're trying too hard to follow the script instead of running freely. I think that's a very good point, Kevin. Having watched this back, I didn't think there were a lot of holes there. I'm going to be honest. I actually thought there were a couple times they cut it back because the front side collapsed, and then there was also people on the backside. I didn't see a ton of big holes that they missed. I really didn't. And again, that's just my opinion. It doesn't make it the right one. There were a couple plays, man. I felt bad for Dylan Jones. Like there was one where he had 3 people on him. Like were they perfect? Absolutely not. But I didn't see a ton there that I would really hold him to task on. A couple other things on the rewatch. I think they probably I don't love the middle screen game, whether it's the running backs or the tight ends. They tried it a couple times. They missed on a one to Jackson Aker. They had the interception off the one to Dylan Jones. They didn't get much off an inside one to Lance Mason. And even on the one, even if they would have completed the Dylan Jones one, that wasn't busting for 20, 30 yards. If they had completed the Jackson Aker one, that wasn't busting for 20 or 30 yards. It feels overly complicated for the payoff. There's a lot of traffic on the middle of the field. I don't love it. I think they could do without that. Just my take. Daniel Neal, another one here that I took a note of, multiple times delivering passes with someone in his face. Really impressive against pressure. He doesn't back away from it. He doesn't panic. I thought he was really good with a couple people in his face today. One other one on defense I wanted to bring up. I watched the offense more on the rewatch. I skipped through some parts of defense, but I wanted to bring up one on Brendan Lane. Plays with great leverage. There was a play where he took the guard with him, uh, drove low, held off, powered through him, then powered through the running back to make the tackle. Brendan Lane looked pretty good today. Or yesterday. So I thought the defense was good. I really wanted to go back and rewatch the offense, rewatch every offensive play. I came away feeling better, honestly. I liked how the tackles looked. I liked how Daniel O'Neal looked. I think there's a couple missed blocks here or there that could have sprung a few things. Now, again, this isn't a great competition, but I think not having Jake Renfro was a big deal. I think him back in there makes a big deal for this team. Okay, coming up, the best and worst players from the game per Pro Football Focus. And I'm going to tell you if I agree or disagree with their grades. That's coming up next, Locked On Badgers. Let's go. Okay. Best and worst players. This is per Pro Football Focus, offense and defense. They're highest graded and lowest graded players. I'm going to tell you if I agree with these or not. On offense, there are three highest graded players for the Badgers. Daniel O'Neal, 89. Lance Mason, 84.6. Tretch Kekahuna, 84. Yeah. I have no issues with that. I thought Daniel O'Neal was phenomenal. I thought Lance Mason was phenomenal. I mean, Tretch was a little bit of the beneficiary of a pretty open play, but he's good in space. Like Tretch has a unique ability to weave through space, to find angles. So I'm fine with that. I thought all three of those players were up there. The three lowest players per Pro Football Focus, Kerry Kadenko. Again, I didn't think he was great. I can see that. Grant Steck, watching the film back, he missed a block in the middle of the field, didn't get a lot of other opportunities. So, yeah, I don't think it was a great Grant Steck game, although I don't think he had a ton of opportunities. And then Jackson Aker, I've talked about it. I thought he missed a couple blocks too, so that grade makes sense to me. On defense, they're three highest graded Badgers per Pro Football Focus. Mason Reiger with a 90.3. Emilio Agard with an 85.2, and Daryl Peterson with a 79.7. No issues with any of those either. So again, with Pro Football Focus, I like using it as a data point, but then I want to say, does that back up what I thought I saw? And if it does, I feel pretty good about it. Mason Reiger, I thought looked great. Didn't have a sack, but they had him down for 4 pressures, which I think felt right. The thing you see, and I went back and I rewatched some of the Mason Reiger snaps. He has a graduate degree in pass rushology. I mean, he has a bag upon a bag. You know, there was a couple plays he's using his hands, he's getting outside, and the very next play, jab step to the outside, rip move to the middle, rip move to the inside. He has multiple ways to beat a tackle, and then he sets moves up. And really, really good game from him. Again, had 4 pressures, also had a couple really nice plays against the run. You could do an entire cut up of Mason Reiger from this game if you wanted to. Emilio Agard was second, had the pick, but also the thing with Agard that's impressive, he's a really good tackler. He came up a couple times in this game, physical, made tackles. He gave up a couple receptions, but he also had an incredible play, drove on the interception, was physical in the open field. Love Agard. And then Daryl Peterson, I put actually a clip of his on Twitter. He had a good game. Him putting on size, putting his hand in the dirt, and playing closer in contact with the offensive line, I think is the best thing that could have happened to him. He's quick off the line. He was a little too stiff as a linebacker playing in space, but with his hand in the dirt, he's a quick defensive lineman, and he can just use those natural athleticism, those gifts he has to give some guards and some tackles some issues there. I thought he played well. The 3 lowest graded defensive players per Pro Football Focus, and I'm only using guys that got a significant amount of snaps. Holman, Deone Hill, Latimer, your 3 corners. Yeah, I didn't think they were great. I thought they gave up some plays. Now, I thought Vadiato, the quarterback for Middle Tennessee State, I thought he threw some dimes on those go routes, those 9 routes, those vertical routes. I thought he made some really nice ball placement throws. So, but you need your corners to then fight for the ball a little bit more to break some of those up. So I didn't think they were great. I do think the ball placement was pretty good on those passes, and their big receiver, number 1, I forget his name. He's a pretty physical guy, but Alabama's going to have physical guys too. Oregon, Ohio State. We're going to play a lot of teams with physical receivers. You got to compete better than that. So, yeah, I could see where Pro Football Focus is going with those. All right, let's bang some comments out here at 12:54 a.m. Central Standard Time. Rory, Comstock. Comstock isn't down close to me. Do you think Billy returns this week? I don't. I don't. I will say this. I wouldn't hold him out. If he's healthy enough to come back, I think you play him. But I don't think he is going to be. He wasn't practicing last week, as far as I know, and from what I've kind of been told. So I think you have Daniel O'Neal again this weekend, Brian Denny, and that's tough. It's going to be tough for Daniel O'Neal, but it's also going to be an interesting challenge to see where he's at and see where this team is at. But no, I don't think so. Kevin Wills says Mason is more athletic than advertised. Agreed. And I didn't give him enough credit. Again, that's on me, right? I didn't pay enough attention to the film and do enough legwork on that one. He's a pretty athletic kid. I like him, man. P says Tretch and V8 are deeply offensive. I like that. Rick says, hey, Ryan, I'd like to see Dupree use more in the passing game. He has great hands and has shown toughness when he gets the ball. I agree with that, Rick. I think that's a really good point. And I made the point of I don't think I did it on a show, but I know I was talking to Justin and I said, if you're going to run that kind of middle running back screen, then run it to Dupree. Not that Dylan Jones can't catch the ball. Dylan can. But I feel like Dupree is probably the better guy to run that middle running back screen too. So if you're going to run that, and I think I'm kind of over middle screens at this point, but if you're going to run that, I think you have Dupree in there. I think it makes more sense. So I think that's a really good point. Rick says, I'd play O'Neal until Billy's near 100%. It would be, yeah. You go on to say it'd be risky to play him prematurely. I think this is dead on. And a point that came up in our live show, having O'Neal play as well as he has kind of gives you the ability to wait a little bit until Billy's fully healthy. So I agree with you there. P says, are we supposed to be completely sold on Billy? Seems like many are. Do you mean like completely sold on Billy in terms of we know he's going to be good, or sold on Billy in terms of like we're done with him? I don't know which way you're phrasing that. Here's my take on Billy Edwards. I like him. I've never not liked him. I think there will be a point if Daniel O'Neal continues to play well, given he could be the quarterback of the future, that maybe you wonder if it makes sense to upset the apple cart. I'm not saying we're there now, and they had Billy Edwards ahead of Daniel O'Neal for a reason. He's a little bigger. He's a better arm. Like, I think he can do a lot in this offense, but he's got to be healthy. I'm not sure a limited, maybe potentially hampered Billy Edwards is better than a fully healthy Daniel O'Neal. That's what I would say. But I think you have two good options. And going from where we have been the last couple of years, that's a good thing. That's a really good thing. Kevin Will says, Pass Pro is 10 times better. Yeah, Pass Pro is great. I had very little issue with Pass Pro. There were a couple missed assignments. Again, if you go back, if anybody wants to, go back and watch the 4th and 3 touchdown where we went forward at the 3-yard line, threw it to Tyrell Henry. Go look at the offense line on the left side there. Brunner seems to let somebody come in, free rusher, which we didn't need to do. I don't know who the communication was on that one. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say that was definitely Brunner's assignment because I'm not an O-line coach. I'm not in practice, but it feels like that was Brunner's guy. So there were a few things here and there to clean up, but yeah, the offensive line was a lot better. Kevin says, do we miss Nizier? Emilio looking good. I think we miss Nizier because he has size. You go back and you look at how they kind of hurt our corners. They did it with size. They did it with kind of 50-50 jump balls. That's where Forkerine really helps you. Emilio, and I've been a fan of Emilio since he committed. Like, I love that kid. Great mom and dad too. Like, I'm a big fan. But he is a little shorter. Rico's a little shorter. Latimer's a little shorter. So that's where Forkerine gives you that 6'1", 6'2" body frame, long arms. And I thought he was pretty good last year. So I do think we miss him just because it gives us another weapon in the tool chest. So, but it's not a knock on Emilio. I think Emilio is really good. Rory says, I think Nizier is definitely missed. Rory also says some of the jump balls not being won against Middle Tennessee was concerning. Rick asked, how was Coverley? I thought he was fine. Honestly, I thought he was fine. And again, first start, young player, showed power in moments. There was a couple plays where it felt like he wasn't able to stay sticky onto his block. He let somebody kind of disengage a little too easily for someone with his strength, but he's going to get better. I'm going to extend a ton of grace to Colin Coverley for sure. Emerson Mandel, Riley Mallman, guys starting in new spots. I thought they did fine. And I think there's a pretty bright future for Colin Coverley. All right, we're going to wrap it there. It is getting late, but I appreciate everybody that jumped into the live chat on Wisconsin. Thank you for everybody that's part of this community. And we're definitely going to talk tomorrow. Some fun guests coming up this week as well. We got Bama week coming up. Let's fire up on Wisconsin, and we will definitely talk later.